Sun rays like a satellite. Energies bring me back to life. Catch me chilling with the halo. Universal flow, I belong here. Sun rays like a satellite. Energies bring me back to life. Catch me chilling with the halo. Universal flow, I belong here. Hilo, 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 hilo.
I fucking love
Ice
you.
to the fire. Sun rays like a satellite. Energies bring me back to life. Catch me chilling with the halo. Universal flow, I belong here. Keep that focus on that starlight. God of my universe, part of my mission, righteous the all might. Raw splitting the sea into that clear sight. Go far intuition.
Good night, beautiful people. Good night, beautiful people. I don't know. This podcast was just, I feel like it's gonna not gonna have, but has massive potential for something great if I continue to stick with what I have to do. Because it seems like every time it's time to do an episode, it's some form of technical, there's always some form of technical problem. What it is, I have no idea. But it's always something. However, good night. Let me know that you can hear me. Please let me know that you can hear me fine. Making sure I have my settings and everything. Things going well, making sure that you can hear me well, making sure I have all the settings and situations going fine. Okay. And I'm actually using my phone because the laptop wanted to do some update reboot situation. And with that being said, it's been booting and rebooting for a long time. As you guys know, I do need to get a new laptop. But when they provide, I will be able to obtain
Ice to the fire.
Oh shoot. Wait a minute, you guys. What happened? Oh. I just did something by mistake. My brother was coming in the room, and I just accidentally booted him out. Also, in the meantime, please share the live. You guys have time to get yourself settled and get yourself comfortable. In the background is actually my godson Ken, Sky Ken, his son Elo, and Honorable Elohim. As you guys know, we're a mystical bunch. How you doing, Marlon? Can you hear me fine, Marlon? I have my headset in. Hey, Mama, so I have my headset in. I just want to make sure that you beautiful people can hear me fine. I just want to make sure you beautiful people can hear me okay. The beautiful thing about Samsung, I can have multiple screens on my phone, so I can actually multitask like I'm on a laptop. I just have to put my finger on the screen, so you guys have to forgive me. But it's been a long time, and I'm glad that you guys can hear me loud and clear. Unfortunately, those of you that are on Instagram or were going to view me on Instagram or even maybe trying to view me on Instagram, unfortunately, due to the technology not working in our favor, this evening I'm unfortunately not able to. Um, I'm unfortunately unable to stream to Instagram, which I'm still, while we're in the intro, I'm actually still actively trying because Instagram gives me some wonderful vibes. You understand? We are always working with a brother. And so, if I can get in tonight, we're gonna try to, I'm trying to work on the MacBook that someone has allowed me to use to get in. So if you have favor, we're gonna work it out. But I pray you guys have been well. It's been a long time. It's been a while. It's been a while. Let me see. Let's Prince back in. Okay. Looks like Prince is back. Let me see. How do I add him from my phone? Oh, here we go. Nice. It wasn't so difficult. Hey, Prince.
Hello, hello. Y'all can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay,
So
that's it.
I'm actually I'm using my phone tonight because
Okay.
the laptop decided to do a massive reboot reset. Oh, hold on. It looks like the MacBook might be working with me. If the Mac works, I'll switch over to the MacBook. But it's doing a thing.
Right.
And then my personal laptop is doing a whole reboot situation. It's crazy. But anyhow, the phone never fails. The phone never fails. Actually, let's see what happens, y'all. The phone never fails. So anyhow, how you been, Prince? It's been a while since I've seen Prince. Because you guys know, normally I'm always in New York, but I haven't been in New York for a little. It seemed like forever, but since Carnival season, so it hasn't been that long. But it's been a little minute.
I'm doing well. As always, trying to stay focused, follow the
That's
goal, follow the dream.
wonderful. Let me turn the music down. We're gonna turn it down a little bit, or actually, I'm gonna shift gears. There we go. Yeah, that'll work. So, anyhow, you guys, as you guys know, Prince has not shared. I don't think he's been on a podcast episode. He's always very active in the comments. Oh, and here come the Queen. Hold up,
Hello,
and the
hello,
Queen has
hello.
arrived. The
Hello,
Queen has
everybody.
arrived.
You know I have to be fashionably late.
It is okay. So technology is doing what it does best with the laptop. So I'm doing what never fails, which is our lovely cellular devices. They always come through and do what they need to do. But anyhow, how's your day been, darling?
It's been good. Can't complain. It's been a day. It's been a good day.
Wonderful, wonderful. Prince, and your day has been well too today. You had a busy day today.
Um, it wasn't busy, but
Hey, Prince phone does not network does not want him to be great. Like you see what this is you see what guys like I was saying, this podcast has to be destined for something amazing, that it is always have opposing force trying to slow a situation down. It has to be like I don't know. It has to be something great that's going to be birthed out of this. And it already is. Let me say that because a lot of lives have been changed with the little bit that we have done, and lives are continuously changing and including our own and a little bit of work that we have done. So I know this is just motivation to be fired up. I'm just like by hook or by crook, I'm gonna have to get a new laptop. You understand? And we're gonna sort this out. And me gonna have to get a nice streaming laptop as well. So you guys, if you guys want to be a blessing to our ministry, you understand, definitely support a brother and support a sister, as we
Yes.
advance in our doings, to reach and send this message of, empowerment and love and truth. You know what I mean? And so as we got all the little preliminary stuff out the way, and I greeted my family, my brother and my sister, you know, we came together tonight because Rain's spirit was moved, and she was like, it's been a minute. and we need to show the people some love. But there's a particular area that I would feel needs to get some energy that we have to, deal with and shine some light on. And I couldn't help but agree more. You know what I mean? And so, in lieu of that, we invited our brother to share the space with us, um, to deep dive and to yield some light. And it's not to convince, it's not to make anyone greater or lesser, but to show that, at the end of the day, as a collective of a people, our mental health is important. Our well-being is important, and being able to discern and identify safe spaces, trusted spaces, that will aid us in our well-being and help us to heal and grow so that we can be our best selves. Especially those of us that we call ourselves spiritual practitioners or occultists or devotees of spiritual practices. It's vital that our mind is right too. You know what I mean? That our well-being, our whole, everything about us is right. Because I'm a firm believer that if your head is not right, if the head is not good, nothing, you know, could nothing is going to go in the way that you truly, truly wish and desire for it to go. You know what I mean? And so, I pray that by the end of our conversation, as we move with intent, but yet with the spirit, you know, that you guys are able to gain and benefit and receive from the conversation tonight. And so I want Rain to share some insight, and she can speak from her own experience and her own expression as to what is motivating this drive for this conversation tonight. And again, I welcome you guys. Please remember, share the live. I see there's some requests on Facebook that I'm going to take the time as she speaks to answer and receive so people can come into space. But I welcome you. I greet you. I receive you. I pray that you are able to receive us in love and light and oneness. I acknowledge the Spirit of God, the Spirit of the ancestors that dwell, the seen and the unseen, that they allow us to unify, even in our distant and various of places, that we're able to lift a strong vibration tonight that is not just for the moment, but will shift and open up something great as we move forward in our various lives and journeys. Ashe, Rain, the floor is yours.
Well, I want to say a pleasant good night once again. It really has been a minute, and just realizing how much I miss having these conversations, how much I miss the interactions between us and the growing community. As Baba Ra said, we are destined for something great. I feel it within my spirit because the intentions are pure to help one another and to build a connection. Because even though we're not in a physical space together, we're one infinite soul, all experiencing very similar things. And what prompted me to want to open up this discussion about mental health is one, October is Depression Awareness Month. Two, my own personal struggles with mental health wellness and how that has impacted my spirituality has been very much on the forefront of my thoughts. Three, I feel like there's so much stigma surrounding conversations still, especially within our diaspora, about what having quality mental health is. We put so much emphasis into our physical health and our physical, you know, appearance. Also, now we've been shifting and raising our vibration, so we're having conversations about our spiritual health. But we tend to forget that, as you said, if your mind, if your ori isn't of a healthy status, nothing else matters. No matter how much you're feeding your body right, no matter how much you're saying your mantras, if you're not mentally well, it doesn't make sense and nothing is going to come to fruition. So I was just very much thinking about, especially with the changing of the season, and many people suffer from seasonal depression. I felt like it was such a vital conversation to open up the floor and having.
Ashe, Ashe. I appreciate that. And Prince as well, definitely would like for you to break the ice and definitely get the people familiar with you. I know those that are, oh, Where did Prince go? There he is. Those that are very active in the lives are very used to seeing your energy in the comments. Um, but definitely share with us a little bit of why do you think that it's definitely important to have this conversation.
Hello, beautiful people. Hold on, give me a second. Because, of course, when I'm trying to be great, that's when all types of extraness and all types of craziness want to happen. But it wasn't happening before. So, with all that being said, that's all a part of life and definitely goes within our topics. But this topic is very important, understanding mental health within, not just within the Black community, but within the spiritual community and being able to balance. Me as myself, who took courses and certified myself to be able to deal with adults and kids. I've seen that a lot of times, a lot of things that's been going on and happening, some of it is actually physically mental health, and then some of it is spiritual. Because I did a course and I wrote it down so I won't forget. It's called Mental Health First Aid, and anybody could do it. And what it is, it's a course that you do so that way you could become a first aid responder for people who are struggling with mental health. That only certified you to be able to like hold them or take care of them until the proper authorities come to do what they need to do, such as the social worker, the psychologist, and stuff like that. And a lot of times, when people see people talking about mental health and stuff, they're always like scared or because of that fear, we tend not to talk about it, and so we stigmatize it. We come up with all types of excuses, and we need to one bring awareness, and in bringing awareness, bring solutions that the people can put into practice, so that way they could better themselves, or if not themselves, then they could better other people who they know or think is going through it.
I agree. I agree. You know, I think culturally, as you guys stated, I think building now as we start to build the blocks of the context of this thing regarding one identifying that we may be battling with a mental imbalance, or that may be a depression or anxiety or a host of manner of things. Actually, I'm going to, as I have Miss Google here as our side chick on the side, I'm going to utilize her as word throughout this conversation just to present some added facts to what we're saying. Culturally, I believe we all can agree that we've been taught to be afraid of getting help because of the stigmas applied. That's something that you made reference to earlier, Prince, the stigma of what it looks like to get help. What does that look like? Most people think about, laying on someone's couch and telling them all my problems, or, the idea of somebody thinking I'm crazy. I don't want to be put into the crazy house. I've heard those scenarios. Or I don't want to be told I have to take these host of medications, X, Y, by Z. And the reality is, for years, even before I believe the concrete research that was produced around mental health, I believe that we've been dealing with this thing, especially in the diaspora, descendants of, and not just in the diaspora. I want to say any group of people that have been abused, marginalized, cast out, minimized, all of the things. Because this could be for our Eastern brothers and sisters, our Middle Eastern brothers and sisters, our Southern brothers and sisters, our Caribbean brothers and sisters, even in modern day Africa, even in modern day, Middle East. These things still are happening. These type of cultural confines and abuse is happening. And so we think about mental health. The first thing we think about the people, as we would say, the people that appear. Go ahead, Rain.
So I just wanted to interject, and
Yeah, go
really
ahead.
stress the fact that when we're having these conversations about mental health, especially within the spiritual community, for so many ages, as you said, spirituality has been used not only as a predated form of therapy, but also a antidote to relieving some of these mental health stressors that are natural to part of life, but also may not be natural to part of life. I wanted to really reiterate the point that we as spiritualists, we have a responsibility to not only keep our own mental health in check, but have an awareness of those that are around us that may be struggling. Because if you're a healer, your principal role is healing, and you have to be able to have that awareness of all forms of health decline. And I feel that in the diaspora, mental health has been this thing that we sweep under the rug because the physical attributes of it may not be readily easily seen. So it's easy to kind of like put it on the back
Yes, that's what I
burner.
was getting ready to say. People think about mental health as something that can be physically seen. We think about children that have certain individuals that may have certain external features that example that, or people that we know are outwardly autistic. We think of these forms of mental as like, no, 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 no. And even as you were saying that, I went ahead and generated a list, if you don't guys don't mind me going through this list a little bit, of different forms of mental health imbalances. Because I think a lot of times, as you were saying, Rain, we don't even know sometimes how to identify it, to say what is and what isn't. And so, just to give a short list, of course, his AI is so wonderful. Um, I asked a simple question. This is how informative Google is. I said different forms of mental health issues. Number one, anxiety disorders. The most common mental health issue. Anxiety disorders include panic disorders, phobias, social anxiety disorders. People with anxiety disorders may have severe fear or anxiety related to certain objects and or situations. Depression, a lasting sadness or low mood. Bipolar disorder, a mood disorder. Post traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, which is a mental health issue. Schizophrenia, which is a psychotic disorder. An eating disorder, which is also categorized as a mental disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. And a lot of times people say, oh, I'm OCD, OCD, and words have power. Remember that too as spiritualist people. So we're invoking this energy as well. I just want to throw that out there. And then personality disorders, because personality and schizophrenia is two different. Personality disorder, including borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Substance disorder, including drug addiction and alcohol use disorder. Disruptive behaviors, including oppositional defiant disorder and conduct disorder. People that don't have no behavior. You understand? Then unusual and illogical thought. It says mental illnesses can make it difficult to cope with work, relationships, and other demands. Signs of mental illness includes unusual or illogical thoughts, unreasonable anger or irritability, being irritated so easily, poor concentration and memory, hearing voices that no one else can hear. Now we know as spiritualists that's a tricky one, and we'll get to that later. And then increased or low appetite, increased or decreased sleep, lack of motivation, and withdrawing from people. Now, I'm not saying that just because you may, identify one or two of these may relate, or even just one of these may relate, especially the lower half of what I just read means that you are automatically dealing with something because sometimes you need to withdraw. Go ahead, Rain.
So I wanted to interject before we get into the complexities of, different
Yes, ma'am.
diagnoses and categorizations. I wanted to have
Hmm.
a conversation about, I don't know, for me personally, what prompted me to want to have this conversation was our personal community, our small diaspora that we're exposed to, because there's so much trauma that's perpetuated within our ATR communities, in our, Black diaspora, that has the manifestation and the effects on our mental health. And because we don't have the proper understanding of it, we might have somebody that's in a position of power and they may be suffering from an anxiety disorder, but because they don't have the wordage, the understanding, it comes out across as anger, frustration.
Anger.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
we have a
Irritability.
problem within our community with not wanting to seek help when we don't feel well. If our body doesn't feel well, we will go to the emergency room. But when we're
Understand?
under a lot of stress, a lot of, pressure, we don't want to take the time to say, hey, this is impacting our mental health. We live in a society now where we're bombarded with so much requirements, so much expectations, so much stimuli that it has a everyday effect on our mental health. And if we're not mindful and we're not having these types of conversations and getting rid of that key factor that I mentioned, that stigma that exists within our community, less and less people will get help. You
I
know,
should.
and
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Nora.
it's something that's, a lot of times if you look at a lot of these categorizations of mental health disorders, it's things that are genetic. And because our forefathers and our ancestors didn't have the proper understanding of how to deal with these disorders, how to treat these disorders, you find that, oh no, mom wasn't autistic. Mom wasn't, bipolar, but mom would come home sometimes and go lock herself in the room and not come out for days. And you had to fend and survive. And that it created an environment that now you have maybe PTSD. We're not, physicians or, clinicians to
Mm-hmm.
diagnose
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anybody, but I'm
We
saying
just,
that
I'm just
within
calling out.
our community, there's so many critical factors that impact our mental health, that are socioeconomic, that are cultural, that have a unique impact on how it affects us within our diaspora. And I really wanted to have a conversation more so, not generalized, but specific to our small niche group, because there's so many people within our niche that are suffering, but because they don't want to ask for help, they don't want to seem like, oh, I'm crazy, or I'm this, or I'm that. They never seek out proper help, but you
Proper
can
help.
tell that they're
They're
crying out
breaking.
for
Yeah,
this type of help, you know,
I agree.
especially
Hey. Mm-hmm.
within the Caribbean diaspora. I know there's a lot of shame in saying that I'm going to go to therapy. You go to be like, oh, well, I go talk to my pastor. Yes, these things are helpful. You can go talk to your pastor. You can go see your leader. They can give you advice. But these are not people who are trained professionals
So
to be
yeah,
able
so
to
let's
say,
slow down. So let's slow down just a little bit. Don't be because you about to gun it. So we're gonna slow down because we have to walk this thing. If we want them to receive it, we got to walk it. You understand? And so I started with the generalization just to the identification so people can discern and say, okay, yes, I fall somewhere in those categories. Let me see how this happened. You understand? And no, we can go and cover every scenario. But when we talk about, thank you, Ashley, for commenting, generational trauma, as I spoke about in our private conversation and even in the text, you know, for us in the diaspora, and yes, I included the East too because they were colonized at some point in time. Yes, it happened later, but colonization hit them too. But long story short, for us as Black people, Black and brown people, you know, Latin, Caribbean, African American, you name it. You understand? For us, it has become difficult because we were taking away from a certain way of life that presented a certain level of balance and discipline, harmony, and communal understanding, communal respect. Yes, we had our wars and things, but it was still a level of decorum and respect and honor that was in that. And the level of life was not as stressful where we were bowed down with a certain level of pressure and expectation. That's number one. And so then now we come into a new world where we are broken, beaten, taught to fear our own ways. So that ties into self doubt, that ties into low self esteem because you're taught to hate yourself and hate what is naturally embedded into you. Then environmental shock is actually just talking about because now you're in a new land and you don't know how this way, how this territory, how this environment functions. And I'm told in order to survive, to keep my head. So you go out of faith and relationship with God and the spirit and the element to survival mode. And in order to survive and to exist, I must strip myself of a true natural identity and then follow into suit of this template that's been laid before me. Now, within this template, some things could work, or just as our ancestors did, we made it work. We took something terrible and made it work. But in that making it terrible, we got out of sync with balance, with the elements and nature because we were taught to excel, grounding ourselves and meditating and going into the water and going into the woods and spending time in the night under the stars and the moon was witchcraft when really was feeding our full beings. You understand? This is what they told us. And so then we also have the element of I can't do the rituals and the work to cleanse my mind, body, and spirit. You understand, with the herbs and with the salts and with the things, because this is going to make me be put to death. And so, although my them is born with a gift to see spirit like I was, I'm going to tell them, shut your eye. You can't see that. You can't talk about that. You can't do that. You understand? And so then now we go into this rotation of, you see spirit, sweeping things under the rug. Spirit, come on in the room. You understand? Sweeping things under the rug and taught to fear, taught to strip ourselves. And so then now when we go into modern day time, even post Zen, you have the physical abuse. Woman that is now being degraded. You understand? Woman that is being physically abused and being degraded mentally, emotionally, in every facet of the way. So then we talk about why do we see our mothers and our grandmothers suffer through marriages and relationships they have no business being in. Because why? The value of being a queen was removed from the consciousness. The value of power and strength was removed from the consciousness. And so you learn to settle. You learn to go into the conditional mindset to do what is going to do what? Keep me in a survival state. I got to live. I got to feed these children. I need to elevate myself. I need to advance. And so who has time? This is the thinking. This is me placing myself, mind you guys, I'm placing myself in the thinking of the ancestors and the experience of the ancestors to think about how we got here to our generation now being bold enough to reclaim our well-being because it is a birthright to reclaim it and to walk in that power. But the reality is you speak about being spiritual and also learning how, because Nika also mentioned in our private conversation the thin line between being spiritual and delusional. And I think that is very important because, again, you have people that are born with gifts and born with these sacred abilities and born with the sight, born with natural gifts to hear and see spirit. But because, again, the lack of confidence, because of the lack of support, because of the lack of awareness, because of the conditioning of the white supremacy to strip the true African nature, you understand, we suppress and we repress. You understand? And so we don't choose to invest the time to cultivate, to discover, to learn, to empower. So now we suffer with question. Now we suffer with doubt. Now we suffer with fear. Now we suffer with the lack of discernment. Yes, Devontae, go ahead, Prince, because I know you wanted to speak for a minute now. Let me go ahead. I'm going to prep my shaman pipe.
So I was listening, and I like to take notes and stuff when we have certain discussions because
Yes.
we talk, and we miss certain things.
Mhm.
So while I was listening to you and Rain,
Mhm.
right? Wisdom is a key factor, right? And
Yes.
everything, we always have to understand the history, not to dwell in the history and relive it, but to understand the ideology of the people. Back in the day, right? You could have been schizophrenic, right? Or you could have had split personality disorder, right? and they would have said you were possessed. So now you have to figure out the levels of possession versus it's just in your head. And and I'm in a unique position because I'm spiritual, and those who know, right? And I also study mental health. And so I feel like there's a lot of times when you look at people, you think they're mental, but they're it's a spiritual thing, but because of lack of understanding, as you mentioned, and not knowing how to entreat with that, we just go, oh, rah, 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 you're crazy, you're this and that. And because we of ourselves don't know how to handle it, it's just easy for us to say, well, you're crazy, and as you said, sweep it under the rug. Because me
Yeah.
personally, when I went on my first deployment, I was talking to a good friend of mine, he's a contractor, and I was like, black people don't do mental health. Like, what? She said, you sound so ignorant. Reality check. And she was like, you know why they don't do it? It's because they can't afford it. And when I thought about it, I was like, that is so true. That might not be everybody's reality. But the reason majority of people don't do it is because majority of people can't afford it, especially within our community. So we have the stigma,
Pause.
and we also have the
Pause.
economy.
Bookmark. Pause
Uh,
for 1 second. Pause for 1 second to that statement. Yes. I'm gonna say partial yes. The other thing is, let me say this. Do you know how many people in our community, especially if we want to say West Indian community, especially the upper middle class or middle class Black American families that are working 9 to 5s that have insurance? They're
mhm,
not realizing their insurance, even the cheapest insurance, covers some form of mental therapy.
true.
But this is the thing. We get the insurance. Now we're going for is for the medical bill, the dental appointment. Let me get these teeth cleaned. Let me go get my annual checkup. But the difference between us and them is they're going to exercise every bullet point on that insurance policy. How I know, because I used to sell insurance in Chicago. They're going to use every detail of what they can, every benefit. And I had to learn that. Every benefit. It's a lot of discounts, travel, all these things come with your insurance. People don't know that in our
True.
community. Why? Because we're not educated and we don't
Mhm,
take time to do what? Read. And so, yes, in part, people could not afford it. And there was a time when our grandparents, they could not afford it. They wouldn't get insurance. So, yes, for our older generation. But when we talk about the people that's 50 and 60 and this current age, even up, I was even give it up to 70 years old. The generation of 70 and under had good insurance. The ones that still get pensions to this day, that retirement check, those are the ones that had good insurance, but they weren't carrying their ass to therapy. They weren't looking for a therapist. They didn't even know they can get one. They just thought that was just for the annual checkup and a
I wanna
dentist appointment.
I wanna interject. Um,
Go ahead.
don't mind if my camera is no longer out on. My power is out at my house.
Oh, I thought it was
Oh,
moving.
me
She thought
too.
You
Spirit
said
wasn't in the
spirit,
mix.
and it said,
Holy
Hey,
Spirit, come in the room.
um, this would be a very pertinent conversation for Spirit to come because this is my theory. There's always been some form of mental illness existing throughout time and memoriam in every society that
Yes,
existed.
yes, yes, absolutely.
And why it may not have had a universal psychological name to place it under, we had remedies that existed that specifically treated the mind. I
Yes,
was
yes.
looking at a documentary, and in the documentary, they were discussing how the original purpose of a voodoo doll, actually, and the other types of voodoo dolls that exist, was to treat ailments that were mental in nature. So we may not have a name for the symptoms that was classified together, but we understood that there was something occurring, especially with like things like seasonal depression. Our Native American ancestors, people who lived on the land, they understood this time of your body needed more rest. We're depressed as a society because we're not living by the natural cycle of how things are supposed to operate. And we're living with unnatural stimuli and all these, we could go into the scientific things of like the foods that we're eating, the air that we're breathing. There's so many things that are critically affecting our mental health today
Yes.
that did not exist prior.
Damn.
And
Yes.
when you limit yourself to saying, okay, well, I'm only going to deal with the symptoms that I'm experiencing spiritually, you put a cap on the understanding that you can have of the problem. I always say, yes, Pastor so and so may be great at what he does, but he isn't a therapist. He
I
doesn't
said
know how to identify the different symptoms that you're experiencing and say, well, hey, you're not delusional. You just may have ADHD, and sometimes you might have a manic episode, and this is what you can do in order to prevent these things from happening. That's why the core of all of this, especially within our diaspora, is removing the stigma that exists. You can treat the social economic factors. Everybody could have access to insurance. Everybody could afford it if they wanted to. But if there's
but you gotta
still a
work it.
negative connotation associated with going to a therapist does not mean you're crazy. Even if you are crazy, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you should be ostracized from society. It just means that your brain sees things differently. A
Definitely.
lot of us, especially as spiritualists, they would probably classify us as schizophrenic because we see things that are not
And we
physically
catch powers.
we see things that are not physically there. We hear things that may not be audible to other people, so it's all based on the perspective of how you look at your
How
gifts.
you look at it.
And the beautiful thing about being a spiritualist is that along with the carnal applications of going to therapy, if you got to take medication, there's no shame in taking medication. We can do things like breath work. We can do
Hold
things
up, you
as
just
vibration and
unpacked the whole
frequency.
lot. You just unpacked the
Fun.
whole lot. Can we walk that? You unpacked the whole lot real fast. I love it though. So you hit on some keys that I want to highlight, and then we're gonna and what you just said gonna loop right back into it. So I'm glad I want to segment right there. And I had hinted at it earlier on, and then Prince brought up a certain time era. There was a time, that in the olden days, spiritually, and even in some parts of the world, even to this day, you still can receive this kind of help. Mental health, as Shanique said, since the beginning of time, there's always been some form of mental imbalance. You always got to have the hot with the cold. And I think every true, deeply divine, creative person, deeply spiritual person, and tuned person have some form of crazy going on. And it's not one look for it. Okay. But what I will say is, also something that I researched from our conversation earlier was ancient practices and mental health. And some things that I was able to find was number one was shamans. Shamans were healers who, as you guys know, I'm just going to highlight that for the people that don't know. So bear with me. Shamans were healers who used rituals, prayers, sacrifices, and altered state of consciousness to treat mental distress. They believed that distress were caused by loss of the soul, and that they would journey into the spiritual world to connect with the souls of the dead and the living, blend the living with the dead. Okay, religious temples. Religious temples may have been used as therapeutic retreats to help people sleep and interpret dreams. Mona Room. Somatic treatments. These treatments include applying bodily fluids while reciting magical spells. Hallucinogens. Hallucinogens may have been used as a part of healing rituals. Herbal medicines. Shamans use sacred plants like tobacco, peyote, and ayahuasca in ceremonies to blend induce altered states of consciousness. Rituals like sweat lodges, vision quests, and sacred dance were used to commune with the spirits. And also, there are certain odus, even in the teachings of Ifa, that even when before a person, even at certain points, you have to get your head propagated. You understand head rotated, head rogation, head cleansing, head, all these things are head propagated. And reason being, that is also for mental health reasons as well. That's why everybody's head feedings are not the same, does not require necessarily the same feedings. Even when one is born, traditionally a baby, because of the condition of the parents, when a baby is born, they will do divination to see the condition, the holistic state, mind, mental state, all that of the child, to know what they would need to do to keep that child in alignment with path and destiny. Same thing in the Eastern cultures. You know what I mean? And so, unfortunately, again, that is an art that was lost to some regard through the diaspora. Not at all, not completely, but in a mass majority, especially for those of us that identify as Christian, even as spiritual Baptists, you'll find many spiritual Baptists that don't do no spiritual work. They go to church, they go to the morning room, they baptize, but they're not going home doing no spiritual cleansings and spiritual baths. They're not spending time in nature, spending time in the elements. Same thing with, some Lucami, some real people as well. You have to have a
I want to
symbiotic
interject.
relationship. Go ahead. Go
Just,
ahead.
I feel like, okay, I'm going to speak. I know I'm a baby Baptist, so y'all
Go
excuse
ahead,
me.
darling. Go ahead.
I feel
I
like
like
if
you, my
we
dear.
were to understand the tools that we have as Baptists and understand how we could apply
I say,
it
Ashley.
to treating mental health and improving mental health. Like, look at the ritual of mourning. Like, when I said, when I went to mourn, I didn't go to meet no spirits. I went to have a better understanding of who Shanique is. And that improved my mental health because I had that understanding of self in order to know how to navigate within self and outside of self and how to apply self within this everyday world. So I feel
That's right.
like the tools still exist. The art wasn't lost. We've just lost the purpose of what the art was truly meant to do. So much of us, we see the head candle in the botanica, and we never sit to ourselves and say, like, I'm not feeling my best. My clarity and my focus and my energy isn't where it's supposed to be. Let me go use this head candle and provide myself some mental clarity. As I said, the tools exist, the knowledge still exists. It's just that because as I keep going back and keep going back and keep going back to, we don't have this openness when it comes to saying, hey, I'm not mentally feeling well. Like, it's so easy for us to say, I'm not physically feeling well. Like when you're
Mhm.
not, when you're sick, you'll be like, oh God, I'm dying, you know? But we don't verbalize or vocalize. And yes, we live in a generation now where it's a lot more openness towards the idea of going to therapy or having an understanding of mental wellness and understanding that you can meld, and there is so many meldings of holistic practices and practical practices within the healing of the mind, but we still have to always keep in tune when you're trying to fix your mental health and you're in an environment and around people who aren't aware of their mental health and how it impacts those around them. You're always going to end up back to square one, especially like when you're in these
Mm.
small niche groups, like being a spiritual Baptist, where people come from generations of trauma. And I'm going to always go back to talking about generational trauma because a lot of what impacts our mental health today is these generational traumas that we refuse to address and deal with, especially within our small different ATR and different little communities that exist. Just because your point I beat you don't mean you have to beat me. That was abuse, and that
But
abuse
this is the
now
thing.
made you have PTSD,
The
and we
reason I
don't
don't
want
want
to
to
have these
limit it to
conversations.
the reason
Well,
I
I
don't
can
want to
only
limit
speak
it to
about my understanding.
yes, this is true. This is true. This is true. But the reason why I continue to make the point known that it's a diasporic thing and a thing, especially want to say it's not limited to spiritual Baptists. These
No,
same
no, I'm not
conversations,
saying
these
that at
same
all.
experiences, even with the abuse, the public embarrassment, the castrating, the casting out, the making people feel small, that is a thing that you will find oftentimes within our Black community, whether you're Jehovah's Witness, Christian, Jewish, whatever. It is there. Because again, why is that? It always goes back to this is what was done to our ancestors.
Generational trauma.
This is what was done to our ancestors. And a lot of times we have the expectation of people to do better that don't know how to do better. They weren't shown better, different wasn't done to them, so they don't know how to do something different too. So we have to take that power. So number one, in the midst of while you're on your journey to getting help, if you're not already seeking or working with a therapist, start your healing journey at some point, somewhere. Start your healing journey, and people say, "Well, how do I start that? What does that look like?" You know what you struggle with. If that's anger, if you have someone, go ahead, Prince. You got your finger up before I go in.
So when it comes to mental health, right? There's different types of therapists. And
Yes.
it go back to knowing your audience, right? Not only knowing your audience as the person who's being the listening ear, but also as the person who's going through what you're going through. If you
Hmm.
feel that you need the pastor because it's whether religious or your spiritual leader, a spiritual thing, you go to them, right? If you know you have friends, right? It's not just going to them, but it's knowing that they're capable in some point to be able to either help you
Yes.
or direct you to the help that you need. So sometimes
Hmm.
it might be as simple as telling a friend, but at the same time, that friend, as much as they want to be a good friend, may not be able or capable to handle the heavy hitting conversations. So now they would have to send you over to someone who's more trained or more diverse or at that. So with therapy, you said earlier, it's not just the Sigmund Freud mindset of sitting down on the couch or laying on the couch and having someone take notes. But sometimes that therapy is talking to a friend or talking to your pastor. But you have to understand who you are and what you need. And if you don't understand, but you realize things are happening and you're not sure, and your mind is
Hmm.
telling you this might be a mental thing, even though you're functioning well, because that's the next thing. Even especially with mental disorders such as schizophrenia, is not always ticks and cursing. It takes various shapes and forms. And there's not a one size fit all, even within each category, whether it's depression, schizophrenia, right? So you have to really take time to understand self. And me, I've always been very self aware to know that things trigger you and ask yourself, why does it trigger you? Like recently, I've been talking, right? And I know that there's gonna come a time where I'm not gonna talk. As loud as I am, I'm gonna be quiet. And somebody might go, "Is everything okay?" Because it's an extreme, right? When you're dealing with depression, it's two extremes, right? Manic behaviors. But if you know your audience or you spend enough time with me, you'll realize that's not a drastic change because there's times I'm very loud and there's times I'm more quiet than a mouse. So you really have to take time to understand not only yourself but others instead of just casting the judgment. Going back to what what Rain said about voodoo dolls and stuff in Africa, especially in the Congo region and stuff, they will call it an Nkisi doll. So it's basically a wooden effigy, and they would take nails, they would stick it in the doll, and when they stick it in the doll, you'll put the intentions, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier about doing behavioral health, when my friend told me what she said, I said, wait, I get to go to behavioral health for free since I'm out here on deployment. I said, you know what? I'm gonna try it. Me, I'm the type of person, I'll try it. If I like it, cool. If I don't, move on. So I tried it. And even though the therapist wasn't, or the behavioral health specialist, I should say, wasn't a spiritual person in the sense of like dealing with spirits, when I there, I was like, since I'm giving it a try, and that's the next thing. If you're gonna do therapy, whatever form of therapy you're doing, you have to just go in and do it. If you're gonna keep being reserved, then it's gonna only help us so much. So when I went in, I said, "Hey, I'm here for you to help me help myself. So let's get it done. This is what's going on. This is how I feel. This is this. And it was a lot to unpack. And she was like, "It's true. I am here to help you help yourself. So what do I need to do?" And it was a godsend to have her because even though she had to leave, because it's military, so everything is on rotation. But she listened, even if she didn't understand everything, whatever she was able to fit in to get me the best help, she did so. And doing it, I recommend therapy, behavioral health, However you want to do it, whether psychologist, psychiatrist, do it because it's very helpful. And sometimes you might just need it just to talk, but it's having that unbiased person there where you don't have to think about, well, I know this person knows me. Even though you might have some friends who wouldn't, judge you and still let you talk, but it's that knowing that you don't really know me. So I could tell you whatever, and it's your job to help me. So even if you want to judge me, I know you're not, because that's not what we're here for. So having that unbiased mindset, excuse me, is very important. Going back to what Rain said again about the abuse, right? I always say it, just because it allowed you to have discipline, just because it allowed you to be a better version than where you were yesterday, it's still abuse. Make
Yep.
no mistake about it. Whether they threw a bell at you, whether they belittled you, however, whatever forms they took to downgrade you or to implement good and positive traits, it still traumatized you. And it traumatized us to a point where we make jokes about it. Oh, you got beat? Yeah, I got beat. You ever got beat with a wire? Me too. I also got beat with a hanger. And we make light of it. But when we really sit down about it, it's like, bruh, sis, we was abused. But when you understand that, now you have to say, you know what? Okay, this is what's triggering me. Why is this triggering me? Me, I don't like to be yelled at. Right? I know that's triggering. If it's a difference if you're just speaking loud, that's still triggering, but it's not as triggering because I understand you just loud. But when you
I
start
want to
yelling and
interject.
screaming, it's like, for me personally, it's like you're trying to attack me. And then on the other side, before Rain comes in, you also have to realize a lot of times, majority of people, when they're talking, the reason why they yell and scream is because they don't feel hurt. And there's times where I tell people, I can hear you. You don't need to yell and scream. I'm listening, believe it or not. Go ahead, Rain.
So I wanted to make a point about something you said. You talked about that self-awareness, and that requires a high level of something called emotional intelligence. And unfortunately, that's not a common trait that's present within a lot of people. That's why I always recommend go seek professional help. Because if you're not aware of yourself and you think, okay, I'm just like having a moment, and you go talk to your pastor and they give you advice, but you may have really been at a critical stage of like a mental breakdown, but you don't have that emotional awareness or that emotional intelligence or that power of discernment to know the difference. We as people, we haven't been, especially people from certain diasporas, because from young age we've been taught to suppress our emotions, that emotions are not as important as other skills or trait. We lack emotional intelligence, you
Especially
know
Mary.
so there has to be a conversation about, in order to understand mental wellness and mental health, you have to develop a system of emotional intelligence within yourself. You have to start listening to that internal voice that tells you, hey, something's off. I realize, hey, I'm a clean person, but when my mental health isn't the best, maybe I start making more mess. We have to start being cued into self in order to notice the signs of when we're struggling mentally. You may be in a situation where you have like a very critically impacting mental health disorder, like maybe schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, where you can't deny that you're struggling because people around you realize the disconcerting behavior. Or you may be somebody that's a high functioning depression. You're suffering, you're struggling, but nobody knows what's going on with you because you've become so adept. And a lot of us in our diaspora have become so adept in masking our symptoms because we've been taught that, hey, we have no time for mental health. That's a constant conversation. Especially, I know, I can only speak of where I grew up in West Indian households. You in the press, you have a roof over your head, you're getting food. What are you talking about? There's a limitation in wanting to say, like, this is just as important as physical health.
Yeah.
Having an understanding and an emotional intelligence within self is just as important as developing and cultivating regular intelligence. Because when you have emotional intelligence, not only do you have an understanding of self, but you have an understanding of those around you. Like within our community, I can understand why do I agree with why certain behaviors are perpetuated? No, but I can understand, hey, maybe this leader's suffering from anxiety and he doesn't even know it. So he comes across angry, frustrated, whatever. Because when you develop that emotional intelligence, it not only helps you understand yourself, you can understand and identify certain symptoms within other people. So I
Hmm.
think we, as a community, as a whole, like when we're addressing this whole conversation of mental health, let's start listening to the little voice, you know? And I don't mean like a literal voice within your head, but just the cues that your body
So that's
gives
what I
you
want to get
that
into
something is off.
the practical things, because I myself, and I can again, I didn't grow up Baptist. You know, you guys, a lot of you guys know that I personally didn't grow up Baptist, so I didn't grow up in a lot of those ways and ideologies and traditions. Not saying that I did not grow up with certain expectations that did produce depression and things of nature, because I definitely experienced that. So not making any environment greater or lesser. But what I will say is, I can speak my personal experiences to what has helped me throughout my life to keep me in a level space to help me grow. You know, from and I can see where I was in my past to where I am now and what has helped me. So I can just give you guys practical points. I've never had a therapist. That does not mean at some point in my life I won't get one. So don't take that as I'm fine or I don't need one. But, sorry, you guys, my allergies are really bad. One of my nostrils is not working. However, pushing through. But I will say practical things that I know help me, and I pray that some of the things that I can say you guys could apply and it helps you. Number one, surround yourself with, as Shanique, as Rain mentioned, emotionally mature individuals. They may not be your age. So you may need to find some wiser, more professional, more stable people. I was mature to always have one out in my family and outside of my family, because all of my friends have been older. I've always been the youngest person in my friend circle, and even my clients are of a certain level. So the people that and even in my jobs, I've always worked a corporate job, so I was surrounded with people of a certain level. And aside from that, when we talk about my personal circle, I think that it's very important to, again, surround yourself with emotionally mature people. Even as my sister here, Donna is one of those individuals. She's been in my life for quite some time. You know, having people that you can have real conversation with, and if, like Prince said, nothing else, is to just listen. They may or may not be able to give you feedback, but they are able to handle the conversation and meet you where you are. You understand? And with a little bit of experience or point of relation that they can make, they aid you in the point that they can. And that has helped me from the teachers, certain teachers that I've had, certain clients that were also mentors because they respected me for what I provided in their life. And I respected them for what they were able to provide for me holistically. You understand? And so that's an exchange. And so it helped me. And then, in addition to, again, having spiritual elders, not necessarily in my church or necessarily in my elay, but again, people that are spiritually high individuals and intelligent individuals that, again, like I said, I could be real with, and they could be real with me. And so in those spaces, in those seasons, certain conversations, whether this is the ride in the car, whether this is a pass of smoke on the patio or the line, or this is our weekend travel, and we happen to have these moments of spaces of intimacy or phone conversation or breaking bread together, just to give you guys scenarios. What my teachers will be after school, when I'm doing my student council stuff, in the early morning when I'm there and we sitting there drinking coffee, having conversation, will be the weekends with my older cousins or my aunts in those seasons when I needed, or my uncles in those seasons when I needed it. You understand? And so, not saying, again, you may not have as wide of options that I've had, but does not mean that you are not in a space or time or season in your life where you can call to the universe and call out to God and allow the universe to place you in spaces and environments where those things can happen. You have to be sensible enough and have the discernment enough to one, be open, to be, and also have a heart and a mindset to receive. So even if that means hearing some things you don't necessarily like, even if that necessarily being some things that may not be necessarily on, again, like my ancestor told me, know how to find the good apples and receive from them. Receive the nourishment, receive the food, because there are going to be many rotten apples, but it is you that have to choose wisely. So in those time and in those spaces, you learn, and then people can only share and give you what they have. That is a therapist too. I have clients that are clinicians. They only can give you what they have. And so we have to stop setting preconceived expectations of people because of title. We have to stop praising and elevating people because of title or because of how much money they have in the bank or how they dress or how the aesthetics of what they come with. But we have to search just like God searches us, to search the hearts and the minds of people to the best of God would allow us to.
I
You
wanna
understand? And when it is in alignment to have those certain conversations, and even for yourself, that is just one aspect of the healing. The other aspect too is dealing with self. Like Meek said, you have to analyze the generational curses. Why are these triggers my trigger? Why do I struggle with being defensive? Why do I feel like I'm not worthy? Why do I feel like I can't? Where did this start? Was it my mother? Was it my father? Was it my teacher? Was it my grandparents? Or was it my religious or
I
social
want to.
environment? These things you have to look at and then find the value in yourself. And again, separate with your wisdom that you now have, separate the good from the bad. And go back and receive what you need to receive and go back and leave what you need to leave and elevate in your experience.
I want to interject. Um,
And
there's
Prince
something I
wanted to
want
speak
to.
too. So go ahead. Go ahead, Ray.
Everybody's going to have different levels and wellness where they may have the ability at that time of their mental decay or their mental illness to have
Mhm.
the power of discernment or to be able to do these deep interpersonal reflections without that outside resource or help. Because sometimes we're at a stage where our mental health is so much on a decline that having these profound introspections may not be possible. The
I
advice that I
receive that.
always give to people, the most basic form of like I need to get out of my head, journal. Keep a journal because sometimes just being able to get these thoughts out of your head and see it on a piece of paper and say, hey, this is how I was feeling on October, this, that may be a prompt to have these deeper introspections that is necessary.
That's
Two,
it.
it's very important when your mind is chaotic, and this is for me speaking from many years. I've been in therapy since I was 12 years old. I am 35 now. Me and therapy understand each other very well. Create a routine, something that's simple and easy for you to stick with so that when your mind is not at the most healthiest place, if you're a Christian, whether you're a Buddhist, whatever, some form of prayer to remind you that, hey, there's something greater than this temporary feeling that I'm feeling. There's something greater than this pressure or this disorganization or disjointed thoughts that I'm having at the moment. Once you have a healthy routine, that's important. I do
That's it.
believe in
Yes. Yes.
having one safe person, just one person. It doesn't have to be a group of people, but just
Mhm.
somebody that when you're not at your best, when you understand that your mental health may be on a decline, you can call that person and not to say vent to them because I'm a staunch believer like, yes, you can listen to my problems, but unless you're a professional, you can help me. You can only provide me, it's like a valve. You turn the knob a little bit and you relieve some of the pressure by venting. But if you have a safe person, someone that can tell you, hey, Rain, You've mentioned to me that you haven't eaten, you haven't taken a bath, your house is in disarray. This is sounding like you're going back into seasonal depression. What can we do? Do you need me to make an appointment for you? Because sometimes people mental health get to the point where
Hmm.
they, even if they wanted to make that appointment, they couldn't, you know? So you find that person that understands you, and let's say you do have an official diagnosis. Like for me, I have no shame to say I have anxiety. Like I have bad anxiety. So my friends and my circles know I can't be in a place with a lot of people. And if I am in a place with a lot of people, I need to be close in proximity to that person that makes me feel the most safe. But if these are because I've had these conversations with the
Hmm.
people around me. So
That's
have
it.
the conversations with your safe person. It doesn't have to be the whole tribe of Israel, but that, one
That's it.
person
That's it.
that you can say, hey, if you notice that I'm looking a little bit more disheveled or I'm speaking a little bit more fast because people who have manic episodes, they speak a little bit more quickly. You know, I need you to do X by Y by Z, you know? But I say create a routine, journal, and don't be afraid or ashamed to say, I need extra help. You
That's it.
know, don't be ashamed or afraid to take the medication if you have to take the medication.
Hello.
Because
That's it.
if you have a headache, you don't feel shame in taking Tylenol.
That part. Or Advil. You ain't talking. You ain't lying. Tell the truth.
So if you have anxiety and you got to take your meds, take your meds. We have to understand that our mental health is the most vital thing. Exercise. People don't understand how much the release of dopamine within our body controls so many of our function. Get your cholesterol, not cholesterol, your cholesterol under control, because that's another thing that plays into anxiety. We have to look at mental health as a holistic approach. It's mind, body, and soul
And I
working
like
in
that you mentioned
unison.
food earlier. Food is so important too. Eat living food that bring life to your body. That was you said that earlier, and this even what you're saying now
And
ties
it's
into
so
that. What you
funny
eat is important.
because in Trinidad, I know we used to do purges. People need to go back to doing a purge. That helps your mental health because we have so much toxins built up within
Toxins.
our body,
Yeah.
so much heavy metals. And they've proven that heavy metals affect your brain chemistry. So we
Yep.
have, as I said before earlier, we have the tools. The tools have not been forgotten. Drink the Coryley Bush. It may be disgusting, but it will be good for you. You
It's not.
know,
Stop it.
just and Coryley Bush is disgusting. But we have these ancient remedies that are being passed down to us, and we should implement it within our daily system. Just like one thing I say, especially, and I want to bring this back because October, as I said, is Depression Awareness Month. And as we're changing seasons, we know that a lot of people, even if you may have perfect mental health, are susceptible, especially if you're living up here north and it's 6 o'clock and it's dark outside, it's cold, it's gloomy. Seasonal depression, as you said, eat more green and leafy greens, eat more fruits and vegetables. As I said,
Yes.
create some form of exercise. You don't gotta live in the gym, but if you go for a little run, a little walk, something to keep your body
Something.
active,
Something.
create a self-care routine. For me, I do my skincare routine every day because that's a form of reminding myself, Rain, I love you, and this is something I'm doing for you. And also, I want to look good forever. Um,
That part.
but you have to create systems, you know, and that goes back to having that emotional intelligence of what are, you know, your boundaries, what are your limitations, what can you handle. And when you understand that, you can create a system that best works for you. Try to get a little
Mhm.
bit more sunlight, go into nature. Nature is so helpful to help reground us and refocus us and, get us away from all the stimuli. Put your phone down sometimes, you know?
And these phones carrying radiation, by the way, so be mindful.
Yes, Prince.
Um, So touching on what you're saying, because it's recent, and I'm gonna go into my notes. When dealing with seasonal depression, it's also advised, right, to stay away from certain colors like gray and black.
Mhm.
It's good, like if you can, to have a plant. Like if you look at the dining room table right now, I have. It's also called love plants, but like especially like a time like now to have that life and that greenery, it's good to have plants. If you cannot have natural plants because you may have a green thumb for whatever reason or what it might be, even if you have like a picture that has some type of life
Life,
in it,
yes.
that to also remind you, to pick you up, or things that make you feel it's good to always have near you, especially when you realize in certain seasons like winter time, you get into that, depression. Also, you know, for those who know or don't know, I've been doing spiritual work for a long time, right? So it's not to say
My
it's
Obia
just free,
King.
right? But Rain mentioned about the head candle, right? And she know me, I love a skull and I love a head candle. And even on my YouTube channel, that's the stuff I want to bring out, is how to take spirituality and work it practically. And one of the things you can do, how people like to take the head candle and try to work dark forces on other people, work it on yourself. The same, you write your name,
Amen.
your date
Amen.
of birth, everything that you need. You need clarity, focus, right? And you use the correspondence to that and you rub it up and sometimes spend time with it. Like, don't
Mhm.
just be so quick to light it. Like, after you do everything, you oil it down, like, really caress it as if you're caressing yourself because it's now
Mhm.
blessing you, and really speak life into it. We always talk about speaking life into others, but we forget to speak life into ourselves, right? So that's a little tip that if you do it, if you tell me that it worked, thank God it worked. If you don't tell me, I know it's going to work. Thank God it worked. But it's not to say because you did it, don't seek help. But remember, faith without works is dead. So therefore, you're putting in the faith and doing the spiritual aspect, but now you're doing the physical aspect of getting the help you need and doing the practicalities to get that. Because the two, believe it or not, go hand in hand. Another thing, having clients and even, Baptist psychologists, because there was a time, especially like, we talk about tea. I don't know why people are telling me all the tea. People still be telling me all the tea. And I just be there like, oh, okay, I listen and I'll just start. And I love it because, like I said, being spiritual, but also educated in mental health allows me to not just look at it for what it is, but to really be able to say, okay, let me tap in. Let me work the gifts I already have to say, okay, they just going through something and it's going to pass. Or maybe you need to do this and really get it checked out. Another thing, right? Dealing with clients, I believe in confidentiality, right? What does that mean? That means if you have that person, right, that comes to you and speaks to you, right? It don't matter. If it's my mother coming to me and talk to me, nobody else in the house knows. So you have to build that confidentiality, which comes with trust, right? Because if you don't build that trust with the people who's coming to you, or you as the person talking and trying to express yourself don't have trust with that individual, even with a licensed therapist, it's still not going to work. So you have to build that trust, right, on both ends. Now, for those of you who are the ones who's always listening to people's problems and giving advice, set boundaries. Boundaries are very important. One, because it keeps you sane and it also keeps the other person sane. What does that mean? That means don't say, oh, call me when you need me. Because I could be going through something at 3:00 a.m. in the morning. Lately, I've been up all types of hours. But anybody who know me know I love to sleep. So you might call me at 3:00 and that's when you really need me, but I don't answer. And depending on how severe your episode is that day, it might lead into suicidal thoughts and all these things. So set boundaries,
Yeah.
right? Where both parties is able to meet in the middle. So that way it's healthy. So you're not taking on everybody's problems and everybody's not just pouring into you all their depressions and all their sadness and stuff like that. Right? Another thing. So I got a new tarot deck. Been doing it for a year. And I was wondering if before we close, can I shuffle the cards to see like what we need to focus on moving forward? Or until the next, couple of months or so and stuff like that. And, to give more insight and stuff like that as well. So, that's up to Raw. Because, it's his show. I'm just a
I
guest
just
here.
want to interject. I think that's a great idea. And people don't understand that, as I said, we have the tools. Tarot can be used to help you create a system of mental alleviation. If you're a person that is like anxious, if you can read cards, a way to alleviate some of your anxiety might be to pull a card on what should you do or what's the energy
Absolutely.
coming in.
Hmm.
I know when
Hmm.
I'm pulling cards, because as I said, I'm a very anxious person. I always want to know what's the energy, understanding that energy is subject to change, but I ask a general question like, what's the energy coming into me for this week? What should I be preparing for? What should I look out
Okay.
for? And my tarot cards give me the answer that I need in order to provide myself that peace and comfort. Something that Prince said I want to talk about is spiritual hygiene as well. Like,
Yeah.
as the season is changing, there is a heaviness that tends to come with that. Take your spiritual baths. We all within ourselves, can go to the Korean market, get a little bit of Dead Sea salt, get a little Florida water, get a little red lavender, a little lime, a little lemon, and you can make you a simple bath. It don't have to be nothing
It's
big,
very
but
simple.
when
Really
you
simple.
feel that heaviness, because it's especially as spiritual people, we feel the changes within the season. And right now, Jupiter just went retrograde, Saturn retrograde. There's a lot of planets. The planets ain't been our friend this year. There's a lot of heavy energy present that affects, and when you're tapped in and you're tuned in, that affects you. So remember to maintain your spiritual hygiene. That's a message that came to me when Prince was talking about the head candle. We have the
Yes.
tools necessary spiritually in order to thrive and to be successful in having healthy mental health. We just have to understand how to incorporate it and unlock it so it works best for you.
Agreed.
Definitely.
I agree. I agree.
So, yeah, I guess so.
I agree.
Journaling, always on
Yes.
deck. And everybody know me. I'm always making something. Even when I'm not making something, always making something. Right?
I should.
And that goes with like Rain said, your routine. Right? You wake up. Now, depending, unless you're doing specific things where you have to do it at a specific time of day, you could do a nighttime bath, right? Where you just, mix whatever you need to mix. And I guess we could go in depth in another forum with that. And you
Hmm.
mix it, whatever it is according to what you need. And then you come out. When you come out and you put on your good goods, you start journaling, right? You light a light, say a prayer, start journaling, start writing down or have prompts or questions and take your time and answer. And that don't mean you need to answer all the questions today, but you choose one, you write. You reread it how you feel. Okay. And you just stay in that moment, even if you say it once a month. Like me, I know if I'm not praying or if I'm not spending time in the presence of the Lord, like how I need to be, I get crazy. Like things don't feel right. So at least once a month, I make sure I buy my candles, do my little operations and stuff, and say, all right, there we go, I'm good. And then I do the practical work. So always remember to do the practical work. Don't just say, spirits, ancestors, and guides, make a way for me.
Yeah, it don't
Right?
work like that. That is so funny.
Can work like that, but majority of the time, no. If we being honest. So
I
you got to spirit ancestors and guides make a way for me, but you also got to do what you need to do so that way
I
everything
just
is
want to
working in alignment.
say I just want to say one thing. one of the greatest forms of therapy is prayer, because when you think about it, and I was talking about that
You just
safe
took the words out
space
of my
and that
mouth.
safe person, who's a safer person than talking to God? You know, when you talk to God, He ain't telling nobody. You know, He's gonna listen to your
Hold on.
problems. He's gonna be a comforting ear. So when you're going through it, and let's say you call your safe person isn't available to you at the moment, you can always have these conversations with God, and He's gonna hear that cry. He's gonna hear that prayer. For
You
me,
know what's
going
interesting? Hold
back
on,
to
Janine.
something I want to go back to something that Prince said. There's a system that I've created because, as I said, I'm always in something. My life is chaotic. But I've developed with some of my very close friends where I tell them, hey, do you have emotional space for me to talk about what I'm going to talk about at the moment? Because I'm aware, because that's, as I said, years of emotional intelligence development, that, hey, I'm about to come to you with the most chaotic story you probably ever heard in a long time. And I don't know if you're mentally ready to deal with that. You know, so when my friends may not have that emotional space to deal with the chaos that is rain, I know that I have God. I know that I can
Mhm.
talk to God, and not to be all preachy because that's not my role,
But
you
no,
know,
this is the thing.
but
Prayer is
God is the
universal.
safest.
Prayer is universal. And but you know what I often find interesting, especially in my long time of doing this work, a lot of times people that deal with depression or anxiety or these things, if you ask them, do they pray or when was the last time they prayed, oftentimes you hear that either they don't pray or it's been a long time. And so it's not about, and a lot of times that is too because, again, like I say, my platform is not just for spiritual Baptists. I'm a universal person, and I deal with all forms of spiritual and occultist individuals, beginner to advanced. And so a lot of times people get into the rotation of, again, I left the church or I left Islam or I left Judaism or whatever, whatever. So they start praying. And then they get into picking up the crystals and the ashes and this and the third and forget all that is prayer. You understand all the witchcraft, all the spell work, all the sacrifice. I don't know if you ever said through a traditional Isheshe sacrifice. It is 2 hours of prayer before blood is shed. You understand? No dramatics given. And so I say all that to say nothing effectively can be done without prayer. And so no matter what state or condition you are in, deep in the dumps, low down in the valley of bones, you understand, or high up in the sky, touching heaven and saying, thank you, Lord. Pray. Talk to God. Before you pick up the phone to talk to the therapist, before you pick up the phone to call me, Prince, or Rain, anybody, before you call your best friend, your good Judy, before you call any of them, talk to God, talk to the universe, talk to the ancestors, talk to the angels, talk to the little garden gnome, talk to the fairy, talk to the river goddess. I don't care who, but talk to the divine first. You understand? I'm so serious because it is so liberating to empty out yourself to God. It is so liberating to empty out yourself to spirit. It is so powerful to make your request known, not just to say, God, woe, it's me, and this is what I'm going through, but just to say thank you too, but also to say, God, I need some clarity. Also to say, God, be a light and give me some direction because I'm lost. Also, God, I ain't feeling too good and my full self. And I know that without anything else, before I take the pill, the smoke, the drink, the talk on the phone, whatever, God, I know that you can pick me up. Mama, Papa God, divine universe, divine feminine, divine masculine, whoever, whatever, however, it will help. I'm telling you, it will help. How did I get through without a therapist? Without any of those conversations and all my resources was prayer. And it was isolated time in my room in prayer, not in the dark crying on the pillow, but prayer. When you talk about my alone time at the water, at the beach, sitting on my front porch, sitting on my back porch under the full moon, it was prayer. You understand? With the good weed, but prayer. You understand? Prayer.
You know, it's funny. So, depending on your school of thought, right? There's an Orisha. Some of y'all know, some of y'all may not know. And anybody who know me, y'all know if y'all know. But there's an Orisha called Eshu, right? If you're in Santeria, Lukumi, Ilegua, right? And there's a school of thought that says when you take your problems to him, don't cry. And I get it. Like in life,
Mhm.
yes, we want to cry, but sometimes you got to make, even if it's very serious, sometimes you got to make it into a joke, not to diminish how you feel, but to put yourself in a mindset of this hurts, right? And I do care. Because a lot of people be like, I don't care. I'm like, it's very few moments when you say that you actually mean it. The reason why you're upset is because you actually care. So I go, you know what? I do care. It hurt, but I'll get over it eventually. And I would sit down and I'll be like, I don't understand what's going on. This is so funny. Like, this is crazy. Give me a reason to keep smiling. Give me a reason to give thanks.
That's it. I
You know,
share. It's the
going
truth. It's the
time
truth.
to the energy. And
Oh,
when you do that, it really like starts to bring things into full effect because now you're changing not just your mental state, right? But you're even changing your emotional and spiritual state from just crying and crying and crying to like going, yeah, this is rough, but I could do this. This is rough, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna overcome. I don't know how, but I know I'm gonna do it. I just want to put another disclaimer: being spiritual, right? Because you can't negate that fact. You could be love and light and the most positive of people. You still have negative energies, and sometimes those negative energies will come and whisper in your ears, and you think it's a regular spirit, especially if you have an unguarded moment, and will be like, "Burn the house down, kill yourself. It's too much." So that's why understanding the mental power that you have and your mental state and your spiritual state is very important. You
Very
cannot
important.
separate the two because there's times where it might just be a mental thing. And sometimes the mental thing is spirit. And when I say spirit, it could be spirit as some just form coming by to tempt you,
and it
or
could
it
be,
could
oh
be
yeah.
somebody sending stuff to
Mhm.
infiltrate you. And instead of taking the form of cancer and diabetes and these things that we could test and see, sometimes they affect you mentally.
Hmm.
And so, in spite of going through your mental states of depression
That's
and
it. Good, bad,
having
and
these
indifferent.
other various things, you have to still try to build your mental stability. And as Rain said, as Barbara Ross said, you gotta create those systems. If you know you like to pray, don't just pray, but figure out ways to do
Effectively
it where
pray.
it's
Go
not
down.
outside of
Yeah.
your norm. Because when we do things and it feels like we have to add something into our routine, we seldom do it. So things that you're already doing, take it to the next level. If you know you like to walk, but you used to pray or you want to get back into praying, pray and walk.
Hello.
Talk. Sometimes just hearing yourself talk, you get all the answers you need. There's times where Rain be talking to me and everybody know me. Majority of the time I go, oh, okay. My face might go, hmm. And they'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. And they'd be like, thank you. And in my head, I'm like, you're welcome, but you figured it out for yourself, right? I was just waiting for you to figure it out. And
That part.
sometimes just hearing yourself talk, you already have the answers. But you don't know that because you feel how you feel because of the traumas and life situation and the negative food that people poured into you and that we poured into ourselves at times. But we have the answers that we need. We just have to be willing to be aware that we have the answers. It may not always be how we think it should go, but we have the answers. So this is a time where you really have to say, you know what? I need help. Like we love to talk about money. I always say, I need my money and I need it now. I need help and I need it now. So Lord,
Yeah.
guide me and show me where I need to go. I want to do therapy. Show me where I need to go to get the therapy done. Send the right therapist for me that will be able to give me the proper advice that I need. So you see, you incorporating the spiritual aspect of the spoken word, putting it out there, right? While you're going now and saying, okay, doctor, I need to do this. I would like to do this. Okay, I need to fill out this paperwork, and being patient with yourself, right? Be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. Repeat after me. I am patient with myself. I have grace
Patient
for
with
myself
myself. You guys say it. I love
because
it.
we don't give grace. We like to give grace to everybody else and love to preach grace or talk about grace, but we have to have patience and grace for ourselves. It's okay.
Oh yes.
You made a mistake. You feel remorseful, resentful. All right. You just do better. And better doesn't mean as soon as you start tomorrow, everything's gonna miraculously disappear. But you just keep on trying. As Dory would say, just keep swimming, but swim in a positive direction and mindset.
Okay, it is one. We've been on for an hour and 36 minutes. Rain, you have your cards to your new deck you were telling me about?
I do have my new deck, but I have no power.
Oh shit. Yeah, that is true. You have no power. Prince, you take the floor. Go ahead.
All right. So I do my things different. Anybody who know me, I love to sing. I love to think. So I probably be humming, even if I don't sing a full song. And I'm gonna just ask the cards. Basically, what do we need to focus on, right? And like I told them earlier when I did it, everything we talked about, right? When I was doing it pertaining to the energy of the cards. Oh wow, that's how true it is. I love God, yo. I be telling y'all, God is the awesome God. But I did it, and everything we was talking about, like, pertained to what we was gonna talk about today, and even some of the things we mentioned, the card itself mentioned. So I'm just like, come through, God, as always. I might fail you, but you never fail me, and I'm grateful for that. So, our God is an awesome God. We praise. I'm telling you. Speak to us right now. Speak to us right now. Without a shadow. Show us what we need to focus on for the coming week. Show us what we need to focus on for the coming month. But as I pull, oh God, speak to us, speak clearly, speak precisely. That whether it's for a specific individual or for the group, that they will be able to know what needs to be done. All right. So 2 cards fell out. Only doing 2 cards. But if you would like a personal reading, if you follow me on Facebook, you can inbox me. If you follow me on Instagram, you can DM me, right? And we could talk pricing and all that good stuff. But the card that came out is concealment. I'm gonna just read what they say because the authors spend time putting these explanations in their book. And the explanations, when it's a good author, someone who took time with their cards, it'd be on point. So the first
Let me
card
see the
is
card. Show us the
concealment,
card. Show us the
right?
card.
And this is what it looked like.
Beautiful.
Focus.
Beautiful.
Right? So that's concealment. So you already know it's a mask. So let's get into it. So it said, you've taught yourself how to be strong, how to be a go-getter, and how to protect yourself. You've conquered obstacles because you know where you stand, and hiding behind a mask can feel safe. When you conceal your true identity and don't let people fully know you, they can't hurt you. The glamorously painted faces look very appealing and provide a sense of shelter. Keyword, a sense of shelter. However, if you keep avoiding connecting on a deeper level, it can leave you feeling vulnerable and alone. Commit to making choices that are better for your unique essence and purpose. So basically, all it's saying in a nutshell, we put up these facades to protect ourselves, but in order for us to really get help, you got to tell the truth. Even if you're talking to someone and you may not know them, but you're having a moment, sometimes you have to be vulnerable to divulge something about yourself that is true and just let it go.
Let it go. Yeah.
That's it. So the next one is passion. This is what passion look like.
Oh yes.
Mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm. So it says, allow your passion to rise up. Sometimes we try to suppress our desires to fit the social expectations and norms. So you see how they're already talking to each other? I love it. But we can use this powerful force to thrive in a personal and professional matter. Our passion for life is immense because it comes from a place of love. This
Mhm.
feeling is the ultimate and most powerful energy that we can emit. Be passionate about what you do and believe. Keyword, not only what you do and what you believe. As I said earlier, faith without works is dead. Do not carry out decisions based on fear. And I
I
love
hear
how it
done.
says
I
that.
pick up done tour. Done tour energy is with that card. Hey, I pick up
Because
done tour
earlier,
energy
the
totally.
card that came out that I was telling you about was the fear card. And I was talking about how to handle that. So don't pick up fear. And if you have fear, then work on courage,
Hmm.
right? What is courage? Courage is doing it in spite of being scared, right? So do not carry out decisions based on fear, worry, guilt, or shame. That state of mind can only bring the same type of negative feelings back to you. What you put out is what you get back. Choose the
Oh yeah.
best version of yourself and project that passion out into the universe. You see, like I said, they're talking to each other. Choose the best version of yourself, not the facade that you put on so you could feel safe. Choose the best version of yourself and walk in that version. And sometimes you might have to switch it up. Now, I'm not saying if you a killer, go around killing people. Please don't. But the versions of yourself that you know is authentically you, but it allows you to live positively, healthy, and full of passion and desire, go ahead. As long as you ain't killing nobody, hurting nobody, or yourself, live in that trueness of self. So stop concealing the false facades. As I said, when I went to a feast, and apparently somebody had something to say about me and was like, I forgot exactly what I said, but what the person said. But it was along the lines of, I guess I'm shameful because of how I was acting. And I was like, one, they need to stop because if I talk about their bones in their closet, they're going to want to know how I know. And two, all this fake piousness that people doing, concealment, I'm like, you need to stop. If you're pious, you're pious. If you're not humble or meek and none of those stuff, then you're not. If you're working on it, just work on it. So all these things that we try to hide because we don't want nobody to know and because we're going to feel like people going to look at us less than or they're going to think we're weak. It's okay to be weak. That means you understand where you lack and now you know what to do to make yourself better so you can walk and live passionately with desire and love. So make it happen, beautiful people. Is it going to be easy all the time? No. Is it going to be hard? Is it going to be challenging? Is it going to feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders? Yeah. But if you keep on keeping on, it does get better. If you keep on
Mhm.
keeping on, the light is truly at the end of the tunnel. If you keep on keeping on, when the storm is over, that rainbow will truly shine favorably upon you and all your endeavors. So I just wanted to share that, incorporating the mental health and the spirituality, understanding what do I need to focus on and focus on it. And sometimes you might get a big lengthy conversation, but even if you take two or three words or just a sentence and focus on that and drive it home, everything else takes care of itself. When you're walking in love, it takes care of peace, it takes care of joy, it takes care of happiness. So love yourself, love your neighbors, put out
Mhm.
love, receive love, vibrate in that love, and be passionate and be you because only you
Oh
can be you.
yes.
Love that.
I love it. I pray that you guys were able to receive. I know I took some great things from that reading. It was wonderful. But this whole conversation tonight was wonderful, and I pray that you all were able to benefit from it. I'm very grateful that Rain was able to join us tonight, and that Prince was able to join Rain and I tonight. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Thank you guys for your time, your patience, your involvement, your energy, your positive vibes. It's been a beautiful night. I pray that you guys are able to receive. And if you missed some things, go back, share it, send it to some people, like, comment, all that beautiful stuff. It was great. So I love you all. I pray that you have a beautiful evening. Meditate on some of the things that you've heard. Take initiative in your journey. Walk with confidence. Walk with your head up. You know, we didn't ask to go through what we went through. Some things were predestined and some things happened. But guess what? You are still here. And so that means your life has purpose. And you are able to take control and rise above any circumstance with the help of Almighty God and the Spirit that is walking with you and the Spirit that is living within inside of you. You have the power and the ability to overcome anything that is set before you. And it's my prayer that we all continue to grow, that we all continue to strive to be the best versions of ourselves because we're all working on something. None of us are perfect, and we're all working on something. Continue to work on it. Continue to make yourself better as we're striving to the stars, you know? And so I love you all. I'll leave you all in peace. Rain, I know you have a lovely message for the people. And then we're going to end this live tonight because it's been well spent.
So I really wanted to comment on the reading that Prince gave before I do my closing.
Yes.
I think the key that I took away from that is unmasking, because I don't know if you remember in the beginning of what I said, is that so many of us suffer in silence with mental health because we have become so adept to wearing masks. If we're not able to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, if we're not able to allow ourselves to be vulnerable within our own self, because most of us won't even admit to ourselves that we're struggling. So we have to be able to take off that level of that mask. We have to be able to stand in our truth. We have to be able to be vulnerable and say, hey, I am struggling today, or I don't feel my best today, or I want to feel or operate more efficiently. We have to have these very vulnerable conversations with ourselves, and as I said before, with that safe persons or person. We have to open up ourselves to get and receive help. We can't improve our mental health if we're not willing to say, hey, I know I need help. And when it comes to the card that said passion, when you think about, especially when you're going through moments of depression or mental decline, the things that you're passionate about, when you remind yourself that, hey, there's more to life than this temporary moment of struggle, there's more to life than this temporary moment of uneasiness, there's more to life than this temporary feeling that I'm feeling, and remind yourself of the passions that drive you, the things that make you unique, the things that make you say, hey, I'm going to push and get out of bed today, you're going to be okay. I want us to know that through it all, we're going to be okay. Find your routine, find your journaling time, find that person, create the things that's going to make you be the best version of you. And it's okay not to be okay. And that's my final words.
Yes, yes. Well said. Well said. Icing on the cake, the queen herself. I thank you, Rain, for pouring into the people, and thank you for you all for being open and vulnerable and transparent. Because it is a key to healing. It is a key to growth. And it's not for everybody, but you still stay true to you and be honest to yourself first. You understand? And walk it day by day, taking it day by day and being patient with yourself. I leave you all in love. I leave you all in oneness. Have a beautiful night.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right, everybody.
Righteous, the all all splitting the sea into that clear sight. Go far intuition, lifting up that soul right. High low, high low, high low, high low. Elevate my love, generate my touch. Everything I see coming to me, I'm knowing. Fruits that I bear from the sowing. I just put in work to the morning, to the 3 birds.